This is James Cleverly at 2 minutes to 2 on the 23rd of October, or yesterday, as it's known technically. The last few weeks show that being Prime Minister is tough and no other job in government is quite like it. I know Boris has learned lessons from his time in Number 10 and will ensure the focus is on the needs of the country from day one. I will be supporting him to return to the role of PM. So that, give or take a couple of minutes, was at 2 p.m. yesterday. Here he is, the same bloke, at 8:05 this morning. So just knock off 8 minutes, take to just for the ease of calculation. 2 p.m, 10 hours, 18 hours later. Here's James Cleverly. We face great challenges at home and abroad. I said we needed experience at the top of government, and I stand... Sorry. We face great challenges at home and abroad. I said we needed experience at the top of government, and I stand by that. I don't know why I sound like I'm hosting Blankety Blank at the moment. I watched it for the first time in a while on the weekend. Bradley Walsh in the chair these days. It's a cracking show, a timeless classic. We face great challenges at home and abroad. I said we needed experience at the top of government, and I stand by that. The candidate with the most experience is clearly blank. Who are you going to choose? Keith. Oh, Lord. The candidate with the most experience is clearly Rishi Sunak. He can count on my full support as our PM, and I will be voting for him. Rewind 18 hours. The last few weeks show that being PM is tough, and no other job in government is quite like it. I know blank has learned lessons from his time in Number 10 and will ensure the focus is on the needs of the country from day one. I will be supporting him to return to the role of PM. 18 hours later, he's back to Rishi Sunak. I mean, what do you do? What do I do on a day like today? And he's not the only one. Seriously. You may say he's a dreamer, but he's not the only one. Nadeem Zahawi, arguably, has been even more embarrassing in the context of these ridiculous swings. Jacob Rees-Mogg, let's have a look at Jacob Rees-Mogg at about 5 to 10 yesterday morning. Ready? He's clearly going to stand. The people who are doing the numbers for Boris's campaign tell me he has the numbers. Jacob Rees-Mogg there demonstrating the intellectual acumen and grasp of the facts, natural talent that have propelled him to one of the highest offices in the land. Just have a little look at that. Boris Johnson, whether you love him or loathe him, we can all agree he is one of the biggest liars ever to pollute the public space in this country. And I say whether you love him or loathe him, we can all agree with some confidence. Because if, of course, you love him, one of the things you love about him is that his lies annoy the people who loathe him. So you've ended up being not just an apologist for a liar, but an actual cheerleader for a liar. But don't be embarrassed. Some of the best-known journalists in the land are on exactly the same bandwagon as you, or at least they were, until the wheels fell off yesterday evening. Because it turned out that he has all of the necessary nominations, but not necessarily in the right. I can't stop picking up 1970s and 1980s reference points. Sorry, wrong plate. So he's got all the nominations, but they go to a different school. Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, national television yesterday, they've told me that he's got... Boris Johnson has told me something that I'm now going to repeat publicly, because if Boris Johnson has told him it, it must be true. How many people have publicly stated something or believed an assurance of Boris Johnson only to discover mere nanoseconds later that Boris Johnson was talking out of his well-upholstered backside? It's unbelievable what he's done to this country, isn't it? And again, don't feel bad if you were part of it, because many of the most powerful journalists and editors and newspaper owners in the country have assumed almost... I mean, sometimes it reads like erotic literature, the way they talk about Boris. Listen to this on the front page of the Daily Mail today. For the good of the party and the country, Mr. Johnson... Actually, no, I should use an erotic literature voice. You ready for this? For the good of the party and the country, Mr. Johnson set his dream aside. This is a gesture of wisdom, honour and statesmanship. His time will come again. That's the Daily Mail talking about Boris Johnson today, Monday, October the 24th, 2022. For the good of the party and the country, Mr. Johnson set his dream aside. This is a gesture of wisdom, honour and statesmanship. His time will come again. These people are completely crackers. Whether they are debasing themselves on a scale never seen before in British politics, like James Cleverly and Nadeem Zahawi and Nadine Dorries and Jacob Rees-Mogg and all the rest of them. I wonder what they all have in common. Or they are essentially traducing centuries of journalistic tradition in this country by turning into a sort of Mills and Boon for Boris Johnson, while pretending that they have some sort of ideological or political foundation for their fetishisation of this ridiculous man. It is, frankly, staggering. 9 minutes after 10 is the time. So you've got the... I mean, it's not even a U-turn. I don't even know what the words are. It's Groucho Marx, isn't it? I got principles, and if you don't like them, well, I got others. That's James Cleverly this morning and Nadeem Zahawi. Here's one. Here's possibly my favourite. Sir Robert Buckland. The knighthoods and the peerages that have been dished out by the last couple of prime ministers are truly the grimmest legacy of their administrations. Some of the least... No, it wasn't my sexy voice. I decided not to do my sexy voice, all right? So stop sending me rude texts. The peerages and the knighthoods, it's breathtaking. The paucity of talent, the absence of integrity, the absolute bin juice that has been promoted into the House of Lords or given a knighthood by the last 2 or 3 prime ministers. Here's Sir Robert Buckland, currently the Secretary of State for Wales. He has endorsed Rishi Sunak. Now, have a little pause on this. In the summer, Robert Buckland endorsed Rishi Sunak and then switched to Liz Truss halfway through the campaign. And now he's come out once again and endorsed Rishi Sunak. I believe his nickname in the cabinet is Yozza Hughes. Actually, that probably needs a little bit more explanation for younger listeners or blank-faced studio engineers like Keith. Gizzajob. I can do that. Gizzajob. I can do that. Gizzajob. Robert Gizzajob Buckland there. And again, they're queuing up to debase and humiliate themselves. I hope someone reminds Jacob Rees-Mogg that he said... Colin, beg your pardon. Please never do that voice again. All right, I promise I'll never do that voice again. Queuing up to debase himself. Jacob Rees-Mogg should be reminded that he said he would never serve in the socialist Rishi Sunak's cabinet. I didn't know where we were going to go this morning, but in many ways it's a sort of pick and mix of political imbecility. Wherever you turn, you are reminded of the absolute idiocy of the clowns who've been driving this country for the last 6 years. And it doesn't end when Rishi Sunak gets the nod, as he probably will do later today. He's not going to be the one to finally admit the truth and begin to recognise the reality of Brexit. There was a massive Tory donor on the radio this morning, a chap called Guy Hands. Look him up. And finally, even on a network that has been trying to pretend that Brexit is all over and done with and that there's no need to return to it. I said to you a few months ago that eventually they'd start pretending or claiming that, we don't need to talk about it anymore. Well, that's just not going to wash, is it? Given that all of the economic damage we're suffering has been massively magnified and exacerbated by the ludicrous decision to become the first country in the history of the world to impose economic sanctions on itself. But Rishi Sunak, Theo Usherwood told me on Friday, I don't know if you missed this, you might want to sit down. Rishi Sunak was writing articles about why we should leave the European Union when he was still at school. So James Duddridge is probably the chap who gets the title for the most ridiculous knighthood and indeed the most pathetic performance over the last 24 hours in the context of British politics. But my God, there's a lot of competition. And here's the point, of course. If you have a concept of or a capacity for shame and embarrassment, then like me, you can't quite believe what you're seeing today, right? Nadeem Zahawi, without pausing, just jumps from one horse to another. Let's run through, if we can remember, the chronology of Nadeem Zahawi's public relationship with Boris Johnson. Can we see how it goes? So let's start with being a loyal cabinet minister and then announcing that he's got to go. Have we got the order wrong on this? And then accepting a job as Chancellor, and then 2 days later saying, actually, you should resign, and then announcing that you're backing him again for Prime Minister, and then announcing actually, no, you're backing Rishi Sunak after all because the wheels have just come off Boris Johnson's clown car yet again.